Today, we're going to talk about the all-carb diet. What is the all-carb diet? Well, before I get into the details, I want to show you some of the results that I achieved in a month on this type of diet plan, because the results kind of shocked me, so I can almost 100% guarantee that you're going to learn something new if you watch this video to the very end. Let me start by showing you guys some videos. The first video is one that you might have seen before. This was me about 2 to 3 months ago, right before I did a 5-day fast. This second video is taken a month after the first video, directly after my 5-day fast, and this video was taken today after eating a diet primarily consisting of carbohydrates for the last month. Like, I'm talking about probably over 80% of my diet has been carbs. Isn't that interesting? I find it very interesting because we're all led to believe things like if you fast or if you don't eat enough protein, you're gonna lose all your muscle mass, right? But that didn't happen. I maintained the majority of my muscle. In fact, for a cut, I'd say I did a very good job maintaining muscle. Even though, of course, I did lose some muscle mass, whenever I've cut in the past with low-carb, high-protein diets, I would still lose some muscle mass. And that applies to everyone unless you're on steroids. You're gonna have a really hard time maintaining all your muscle mass while cutting. The point is to maintain as much of it as you can, which I think I did just fine. The energy from the glucose, from the carbohydrates, in combination with the heavy weight training, maintained and spared my muscle mass. The other myth we're led to believe is that carbs are all bad for you, or that you need to do a low-carb diet such as Atkins, keto, paleo, or one of the other low-carb diets in order to lose weight, burn fat, and get shredded. You'll never get shredded eating a high-carb diet, right? Totally wrong. I've pretty much only been eating carbs for the last month to actually test this out on myself to see if it's good sources of carbs, if they could actually make you fatter. And even though I thought I was going to get fatter and I thought I was going to lose muscle, my body fat went down and my muscles felt fuller. Let's go over to the kitchen so I can actually show you exactly what I was eating. Obviously, I was still eating healthy carbs like brown rice. Ezekiel cereal was another healthy carb that I would eat regularly, as well as oatmeal. I had one major criteria for choosing my carb sources, and that was if it was made from a single ingredient source. I've talked about single ingredient foods for a while now, but I feel like some people are still confused. With oatmeal, it's really easy to tell that this is a single ingredient food. But with something like Ezekiel cereal, it's a little harder to tell because the ingredients are a lot longer. However, if you look closely at the ingredient list, you'll see that they're all natural choices of carbohydrates, and they're all themselves single ingredients. Another carb source that I would have a lot of was bananas, sometimes up to 3 or 4 bananas a day. Rice cakes were also part of my diet as a snack. Also, I was having a lot of puffed rice cereal. This cereal is made out of only one ingredient, and that ingredient is puffed whole grain brown rice. And I would have that cereal with almond cashew milk, not the 25 calorie or the 60 calorie one, but the full out 80 calorie high carb one. And I'll admit the 25 calorie one would have probably been better, but regardless, I would sometimes have 2 to 3 bowls of this cereal at night before bed and still continued cutting. Also, I would have a whole bunch of different kinds of pastas, including Ezekiel pasta, which might look like it has a whole bunch of different ingredients, but really it's still a single ingredient food. I would have regular whole wheat pasta with only one ingredient, and I would also have high protein black bean, mung bean, and edamame pasta. And even though these are very high in protein, you can clearly see the majority of my diet was coming from carbs. I would also freely add pasta sauce as well, but once again, it's very important which sauce you choose. Almost all of them have added sugar. You want to get the one with single ingredients, and you might have to do a little bit of searching at your supermarket to actually find it, but you can definitely find it. I was also having faster digesting carbs like potatoes baked in olive oil. And then for my snack cravings, I would have things like dark russet or sweet potato chips that are made out of potatoes and peanut oil. Also, I would have Triscuits made up of whole grain wheat, canola oil, and sea salt. And occasionally I would have chocolate PB2 on a rice cake. For all my nutrients, I would have at least 1 bowl of soup per day with vegetables like green beans, broccoli, leeks, cauliflower, carrots, and potatoes. And by the way, if you're thinking that cooking vegetables destroys all the nutrition, you may want to start rethinking that because it's a myth. All in all, I did have some protein and some fat in my meals, but for the most part, this was a very high carbohydrate diet with very low levels of protein and fat. And I didn't really think about it. I wasn't really hungry throughout this whole month. I ate twice a day, and honestly, it was pretty easy. So how was I able to cut down and burn a bunch of fat eating only carbs when almost everyone in the fitness industry is telling you to avoid carbs, including myself? I've done videos where I said low carb diets can help you burn fat. And that still holds true, guys. Low carb diets are still an excellent way to burn fat, but high carb diets can work as well. Keep in mind that 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carbs both have 4 calories, so calorie-wise they have the same impact. Also, excess carbs and excess protein will be converted to glucose and ultimately stored as fat. That's right, if you have too much protein, you're going to store it as fat. And the truth is that nobody knows exactly how much protein you should be having to maintain your muscle to begin with. So you may be storing a bunch of excess protein as fat right now. The reason why many people in the fitness industry choose protein over carbs is because of thermogenic effect of foods. Protein is harder for your body to break down, so roughly 30% of the calories from the protein source will be used in the digestion process. However, if you have a relatively low fat, low to moderate protein and high carb diet, I'm convinced you could pretty much get the same results as long as you're consistent, you don't binge, and you don't have a whole bag of potato chips. You eat single ingredient real foods, you're going to be great. The truth is that as much as we all pretend to know about nutrition, and I mean all of us, including personal trainers, nutritionists, your doctor, and even people conducting the scientific studies, I'm willing to bet there are thousands of nutrients in real food that could help with fat loss that we haven't even yet discovered, not to mention the undiscovered hormonal effects of food. So it's very important that you understand that choosing single ingredient carb sources is very necessary for one of these carb diets to work. And by the way, the last thing that I want you guys to do is copy this whole carb diet that I just laid out for you because you think that it's some new solution for burning fat that you haven't tried before. My channel has made it very clear again and again that there are many different ways that you could use to burn fat, and this high carb diet is just another way. Please understand there is no one way to do it. My last video was about how to get into ketosis. Keto works, carb cycling works, high carb diets work, and if you don't believe me, just take a look at the old school bodybuilders like Steve Reeves that would keep their carb intake above 60% on a regular basis. The biggest factor is consistency with your chosen diet. A lot of people truly believe that they've been eating clean for the last year when every weekend or every other day, they're destroying their diet plan. Listen, before you can solve the problem, you have to first acknowledge that there is a problem. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to admit that you're not sticking to your diet plan before you can fix it. And I know that sounds like common sense, but I see people every single day that tell me that they eat clean and healthy, but the truth tells a completely different story. As far as building muscle goes, one very important distinction that I do want to draw here is that I truly do believe that if you're trying to build muscle, you will need to maintain a higher protein level. But it's not as necessary as I once thought for fat loss. You can do that with a low protein and high carb intake, a high protein, low carb intake, or many other different ways. When going for a high carb, low protein intake, you're going to be giving your body its preferred source of energy, which is carbs. It's not going to need to draw energy by breaking down your muscles. The carbs essentially spare your muscle mass, along with the heavy weight training. Again, I still recommend a higher protein diet if you're trying to build muscle, especially if you want more of that bulky bodybuilder type of muscle. I didn't get the muscle that you saw in the video from low protein diets. I got it from a higher protein, higher carb diet. Whenever I would bulk, my goal was to spare the muscle with carbs and build new muscle with the protein, and again, this is not the only way to do it. If you get one thing from this video, I want it to be that there are many different ways to burn a lot of fat, and also, don't be afraid to experiment with your body and try something new for a consistent amount of time, like a month. Everybody's different, and some people actually are carb sensitive. And no, if you eat a whole container of ice cream every day and miraculously gain weight, that doesn't mean that you're carb sensitive. Again, sounds like common sense, but nowadays everyone thinks they're carb sensitive, and that's just plain untrue. It's really far from the truth. It's a thought stemming from the lack of understanding of what's going in your mouth. most people can burn fat following the same high carb protocol that I did for this video. The really cool thing is, when you get sick of the carb foods and you want more fats or more protein, you can switch to a different type of diet and continue burning more fat. That's it, guys. I can't wait to read the comments on this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and also make sure you visit my website, gravitytransformation.com, where you can get a no BS approach to fat loss. Wouldn't that be great? See you guys soon. Pump it.